Greetings to everyone. Boosty in the description, Naruto Lemon comes out there. If you want, you can subscribe. This is a continuation of the story where Naruto gets a second chance, but in the guise of a girl. Chapter 86 to 91. Enjoy watching. Chapter 86. Potatoes. Half an hour of leisurely running and Uchiha and Jiraiya find themselves not far from the city where a combined detachment of Nepodists and Konoha members is staying. Sasuke frowns with displeasure, noticing from afar the figure of one of those who guarded the Kyumo Jinchuriki. However, he quickly pulls himself together and ignores the Sanin's questioning glance. He had no desire to explain who decided to meet them, and he stopped an attempt to be indignant and demand something from him with one irritated look. Still, the Uchiha was in a bad mood. He understood too well what awaited him upon his return. Now the question of the reaction of his future wife was especially acute. Sasuke had two fresh memories of how Uzumaki women, in particular Kushina, who was Naruto's mother, solved their problems. Considering that Uzumaki adored her mother and tried to become a cooler kunoichi than her, this could have become a problem. But he is an Uchiha and must face danger, even such a strong one, with his head held high. Sasuke-san, you violated the order of Reikage-sama, the godfather who met him at the gate began, but one cold look was enough for him to choke on his pretensions. Jiraiya-san arrived to help, according to the agreement with the Reikage, the Uchiha said coldly and, no longer paying attention to the pale guy, went on. Sasuke was much more worried about his future conversation with Naruto than the displeasure of some petty mongrel from the Reikage retinue. The streets of a small town rush by quickly, although the Uchiha walks slowly, without losing his dignity. However, this settlement is too small, so he gets to the hotel room quickly. He hesitates for a couple of moments in front of the door of her room. He knocks quietly and enters. However, after a split second he sighs with relief. The heart-to-heart conversation was postponed. Naruto was too exhausted and fell asleep right on the uncomfortable chair. The Uchiha shakes her head and smiles unusually softly, carefully approaching the golden-haired girl. He does not hide the chakra, knowing full well that he is part of that small circle of people next to whom she does not wake up, and picks her up in his arms. A couple of steps and he lays her on the bed, and then, after thinking a little, he carefully removes her sandals and kimono, leaving Uzumaki in only her underwear. He admires the opening picture for a couple of seconds, but immediately pulls himself together, noticing how his bride is shivering from the cold. The guy immediately covers her with a blanket and leaves, although it is difficult for him to overcome the temptation and not lie next to her. You're doing something fast, Jiraiya, casually leaning against the wall, notes thoughtfully. From his appearance it immediately became clear that he had come here to observe the showdown, and now he was sincerely disappointed by the absence of such a showdown. She fell asleep. I decided not to wake her up. After a short silence, Sasuke answered and calmly walked past. His room was adjacent to Uzumaki's room, and since she was sleeping, he decided with a clear conscience to do the same. In the end, won't the Nepodists come to him to sort things out? Yes, and they will climb. He is not Naruto. He will not feel sorry for them, quickly putting them in their place. It's clear, Sanin nods thoughtfully. I was put in your room, Sasuke. According to them, for the sake of safety. Idiots, the Uchiha noted briefly, mentally noting that such security measures would not work against them. The possibilities are too great, and the barriers that Naruto has set up will not allow them to attack unnoticed, or even attack at all. His bride was too obsessed with the safety of her loved ones, but this only added to her attractiveness in his eyes. I agree. But is it possible to go against the owners? Gama-Sennin smiled mockingly, watching as the Uchiha opened the room and invited him inside with a short nod. Purr, states Jiraiya, looking around the small room covered with tatami and a couple of pillows on the floor, near a low table. The room looked empty, even for a hotel room. Time seemed frozen here. Futons and linens in the closet, Sasuke stated indifferently. Your chakra is included in the security circuit. You have access everywhere, but the rest do not. To maintain the system, once a day, you need to fill this seal, a thin aristocratic finger points to the subtle shimmer of the seal in the middle of the room. Today I will do it, tomorrow, if necessary, you will do it. Sasuke, I wanted to ask Sanin something. I'm a bad storyteller, wait until Naruto wakes up. The Uchiha cut off the conversation that had not yet begun and went to the closet. A few seconds later, Jiraiya could watch as the representative of the red-eyed clan prepared the futon for bed. After another minute, he freezes thoughtfully and turns to the dissatisfied Sannin. There is a good bath here. Is it true? Gamma Senin's eyes flashed oilily, but immediately went out. Yes, he was a pervert, but he knew when to be more serious. Now was just such a moment. It's not shared, and in general, in the hotel it's only us and the rakish subordinates. A mockery appeared in the black eyes for a moment. Even though he didn't know Jiraiya closely, at one time his fiancée told him a lot about her godfather, so he easily understands what the Sannin was thinking. However, he was in no hurry to laugh or condemn him. Everyone relieves stress differently, and their profession has a lot of it, especially for those who went through the war. It doesn't matter first, second, third, or even fourth. It leaves scars that bleed even years later. Memory, the most terrible executioner for those who walk on the edge, constantly dancing with Shinigami. It's clear. Jiraiya instantly turned sour and sighed doomedly. Okay, lead the way. If I can't partake in the beauty, I'll at least wash myself. The Uchiha grins at such a statement and heads out. He's even a little curious about what the Sannin will do when he sees the size of the bathhouse. No, it couldn't be called small, but it was designed for 5, maximum 7 people. Just right for a group of friends, but not for an old pervert who is unlikely to be happy with a guy like him next to him. However, interest faded as quickly as it appeared. The Uchiha didn't care about such trifles, but Naruto's health varied. He seemed to have underestimated the Uzumaki's condition, which was clearly hinted by the fact that she didn't wait for him. Perhaps, in the light of what had been revealed, he would even be glad for the thrashing, because it showed that it had not reached the edge and that the unruly Bijou were largely to blame. Sasuke thought for a moment. He would not be able to penetrate Naruto's subconscious unnoticed, but he could politely convey his point of view to others through other Jinchuriki. Here the question immediately arose, through which one? B was more accessible, but the Uchiha did not believe that Hachibi was getting on his fiancée's nerves, but Nibi, he would definitely communicate with this cat, at least for prevention. The doors to the onsen appear before Sasuke's eyes and he silently walks inside, beginning to show the Sannin what is here and how. As soon as he was convinced that he understood everything, he did not wait, going first to wash himself. Surprisingly, there were already several people inside, whom the red-eyed man simply ignored. Sociability was not his strong suit. However, this did not stop him from listening to the conversation that Jiraiya, who appeared, immediately started. He was the one who easily talked people. Although this time he came across hard nuts that did not respond to his tricks, and, disappointed in the conversation, the Uchiha leaves, not forgetting to discreetly leave a couple of snakes, just in case. Even if they don't learn anything useful, it's okay, he spent little chakra on culling them. And now he should go think over plans for tomorrow's conversation with Naruto, and then go to bed. However, he did not need this. Uzumaki was too exhausted and did not wake up the next day, managing to recover sufficiently only on the 3rd, which the Uchiha felt at the same moment, and went to his treasure to make sure that she had opened her eyes. You scared us. Sasuke's voice was calm, and only a knowledgeable person could see the sparks of fear for his loved one in the depths of his eyes. He was worried about Uzumaki and very much. It was too painful for him to see the pale, motionless figure on the bed for so many days in a row. I just wanted to scream that this is not Naruto, she simply cannot be like that. How long was I unconscious? The girl clarifies hoarsely, greedily reaching for the carafe of water, which the Uchiha changed every day, carefully checking for excess impurities. 3 days, he responds honestly, getting up and handing over a decanter of water to his bride. What's noteworthy is that he ignored the glass standing next to him, understanding too well how much thirst the girl was tormenting. Jiraiya-san was about to sound the alarm and demand that a good rinnegan be sent to help us, or, as an option, run away from here with you in his arms. Ha ha! It looks like him. With a grateful smile, accepting the offer, the girl nods. She drains the container by a couple of liters quickly, even though some of the water flows past, beautifully outlining the curves of the young body. The most disgusting thing for the Uchiha was that Naruto didn't even understand how it looked from the outside and how it affected a healthy guy. By the way, do you want to clarify anything? Probably nothing? Taking long pauses, Sasuke asked with a straight face. Hastily taking away the empty container from the girl, naturally fearing that otherwise it would fly into his head. Sasuke, the voice is kind of tired and exhausted. You know, I really wanted to try my Kachan's favorite technique on you. Which one is this? The Uchiha interrupts her, feeling that she won't hear anything good. For myself, of course, I didn't make a mistake. Frying pan no jutsu, Naruto responded affectionately and continued with a promising smile. Greatly improves mutual understanding in the family. If you don't believe me, ask my Two-san. As soon as Kachan uses this jutsu against him, he immediately understands how wrong he was. Okay, Sasuke sighs doomedly. As we thought, Pain and Konan were sent after your soul. We captured everyone. Captured? The girl smiles joyfully, jumping up in place, causing the sheet, which was already hiding almost nothing, to fly off her completely, causing the Uchiha to swallow subtly. Did I understand correctly that you captured them alive and did not kill them? Yes, just a little shabby, Sasuke agreed, without even trying to look away. Deciding that this was a good workout for endurance, and just pleasing to the eye. How shabby? A suspicious squint in response. Uzumaki knew her fiancé too well not to notice some of the nuances of what was said. They'll need help. The Uchiha avoided a direct answer, but Naruto was not going to give up, deciding to extract all the available information from him, although she didn't have time. The entire hotel was shaken by someone's loud voice, and a couple of seconds later soft footsteps were heard. The walker clearly wanted to be discovered without completely hiding his chakra. Naruto, am I coming in? A short knock on the door and the painfully familiar voice of the Hokage. Minato came to visit his daughter, to personally make sure that everything was fine with her and there was no threat to her life. Of course, Two-san. The girl immediately agrees energetically, jumping up in place and smiling broadly. Idiot! The Uchiha's doomed groan sounds and he covers his face with his palm. True, this did not prevent him from noticing the dumbfounded look of the same blue eyes as his bride's. Well, at least no one else was visible behind him. Chapter 87. It's time to ACT.NY. Awakening was quite pleasant. The fatigue of the last few days disappeared, the head was surprisingly light, there was no headache that had become familiar, and the bijou behaved surprisingly quietly. Grace. I just really want to drink. However, this issue was quickly resolved by Sasuke, who came into the room as soon as I woke up. True, as soon as I saw him, recent questions were resurrected, but there was no desire to start a showdown. Perhaps later, but not now, when for the first time in so many days I felt like a human being. The mood grew steadily, although there was still a little discontent, as the reservations about prisoners were too strange. Knowing my betrothed, there is no point in expecting anything good. However, the main thing is that these two are alive, and the rest will follow. It's not in vain that I'm the heir, or rather the heir of Azura. I'll get out. Moreover, I have incomparably more opportunities and resources in this world. Uzumaki do not abandon their own. Aji-san will immediately understand all the benefits from such a relative, and will provide all possible assistance. Still, he never had a worthy heir. No, Aji-san and Oba-san are still quite strong, they will be able to survive many more, and if they wish, they will be able to have more than one child, but we need to look to the future, and Nagato has strong blood. I am sure that with the right approach, his and Konan's children will be real pearls of the clan, and the Uzumaki will be one step closer to their dream of reviving Uzushio, returning the clan to its former greatness and strength. A mutually beneficial exchange, they will receive a family and a reliable rear, and in return they will give loyalty to the clan and its ideals, which in many ways intersect with the aspirations of my friend, albeit not so utopian. I smiled joyfully and jumped to my feet. The thirst for activity is boiling inside me. There is so much to do, so much to talk to and sort out formalities. At the same time, we need to catch Jiraiya and clarify some points about Nagato. Is it enough? It was in that world that he didn't show his face anywhere until the last moment. That's why he never got into the bingo book. But here, who knows? In general, it's worth considering everything, and if something happens, thinking about how to make a respected member of the clan out of a nuke. If this is not required, even better. All that remains is to cure and straighten the brain, and I can handle this very well. Or Aji-san. He will not only find words of consolation, but will also be able to direct excessive enthusiasm in the right direction. It's not for nothing that he has been leading the remnants of the clan for so long. Although I will be happy to help him with this. Oh, how I can help him! My thoughts are interrupted by the feeling of a familiar chakra. Tusan? Where is he here from? And even with the rakeage, even if he didn't go upstairs, he stayed downstairs, probably to receive reports from his subordinates. I nod in agreement to myself and answer the request to enter with firm consent, not understanding that it was Sasuke who was so alarmed. After all, this is my Tusan. Of course, I agree for him to come into my room. I haven't seen him for so many days. And what are you doing? Tusan looks in our direction, stunned, for a couple of seconds, and then a palpable thirst for blood begins to emanate from him. I blink my eyes stupidly, not understanding what caused such a reaction. It seems that Sasuke and I are not doing anything bad, otherwise I would have noticed and behaved differently. I propose to discuss this point in the next room, calmly withstanding my father's enraged gaze. The Uchiha notices and, getting up, goes to the exit. Do you agree? Yes, I think it will be better this way. Tusan immediately nods, moving away a little and letting my fiancé pass by. By the way, Naruto, while we're talking, would you mind getting dressed? Before closing the doors, he throws Sasuke, forcing me to pay attention to my appearance. A thunderous laugh instantly resounds in my subconscious, which makes me wince and even blush a little. Not out of embarrassment, more out of anger. And on herself and on Tusan and Uchiha. Well, just think, I walk around in my underwear, not in front of strangers. I advise you to hurry up, Kurama remarks through laughter. A couple of seconds of silence, and he continues contentedly. Although you may not be in a hurry anymore, you still won't be able to do anything. What do you mean? Grabbing a neatly folded kimono, I clarify, although I myself feel something is wrong. My Tusan has put too strong a barrier to a simple conversation. Naruto, Nibi sighs doomedly, and the laughter of the others, as if by magic, falls silent. Just imagine that you have a daughter, can you imagine? Yes, I agreed, even stopping for a moment, but then continued to pull on my sandals. Well, now imagine that she has a fiancé whom you don't like, but you are not able to roll back the decision about the engagement and their marriage, because the agreement has been drawn up and signed, Matatabi continued, still softly. Did you imagine? Yes, the answer against my will turns out to be sharp. I'm already starting to guess where everything is going. Fine, came the answer instantly. Now imagine that you caught them in a compromising manner. Your actions? Oh, yay. This is all I can do. I perfectly understood all the hints and omissions, and I never complained about my imagination. However, as I fell out into the corridor, I was able to make sure that I couldn't change anything. The barrier on the doors was strong and breaking it would be difficult. It's easier to wait, won't they kill each other? I sigh resignedly, averting my gloomy gaze from the closed door. It's useless to pound on it, no one will open it, I'm sure of that. Sit and wait on the threshold of the room? It's stupid, and who knows how many people can get up here. I don't want to set Tusan up and look like an idiot in other people's eyes. I just can't afford it. I'm still not a rootless orphan, I have to live up to it. I sigh in defeat and decide to go downstairs, leaving the clone in my room. He will watch the door to Sasuke's room and, if anything happens, he will be able to both help and call me for help. Well, I should go downstairs and greet Toussaint's entourage, and exchange a few words with Erosenin, otherwise things won't go well. He arrived and I didn't even say hello to him. I shake my head tiredly, and, accompanied by encouraging exclamations from Kurama and Shikaku, I head to the local kitchen, not forgetting to look at Yujito-san along the way. The kunoichi has clearly become many times better. Awakening can happen at any moment, and I'm not the only one who understands this. Bai-san still assigned a man to her, and now she is under round-the-clock surveillance. Fine. I don't know how I would act if I again had to replace an entire staff of Irenans and servants. Still, as time has shown, I have a limit of strength, and I almost reached it. It's bad, and I don't want to take that risk anymore. How many people can take advantage of my weakness? I don't want to become a burden and drag others down with me. There are too many people in this world who are dear to me. I will hold on to this life until the end and will not dare to die as stupidly as last time. Now I have somewhere and someone to return to. Oh, are you awake yet, Naruto? Below I am met by Erosenin and Obito-san with a couple of jounin I don't know much about. No, I've obviously seen them before, but I've never communicated closely enough. Where are my student and Sasuke? Good afternoon. They decided to talk. I respond evasively, not wanting to tell you how I messed up. Yeah. Like a man, Shikaku laughed, making me wildly want to strangle him. Oh, clear, Jiraiya chuckled. I hope after their conversation the walls of the hotel will remain intact. I don't know, they closed the room with a strong barrier. It takes too long to break in, I shrug, and then cast an interested glance towards Obito-san. Don't look at me like that, Naruto. He immediately raised his hands in front of him. Sensei will tell you everything and, a subtle mocking grin, and then he continues, you'd better listen to him, he was already very happy with your latest antics. It's clear, I wince, imagining how happy Toussaint was. It seems that the moment of reckoning has come. I sigh tiredly. I still can't change anything and I can only hope that he will let off steam on Sasuke. But he doesn't have enough strength for me. I decide to ignore the slight pang of guilt. The Uchihas are tenacious people, nothing can be done to them, and long ago these two should have sat down and talked, resolved their differences and stopped dividing me. I hope this time they will be able to discuss all their complaints and stop making me nervous. The last thought completely assures me of the correctness of my decision not to interfere, so I look at my fellow countrymen more calmly and offer. Will you have some tea? I won't refuse. Obito-san's grin turns into a mocking smile. He clearly understood all my throwing. However, the fact that he didn't go knock on the door and try to separate his former mentor and his relative speaks volumes. I wonder if he is so confident that my Toussaint will restrain himself, or if he considers Sasuke unkillable? I don't know, I'll hope it's all together. I nod silently and go straight to the kitchen. No, it was possible to call the service using the bell, but I need time to think about everything. It's been a very busy morning for me. Well, it's good that I didn't meet the Reikage right here, but something tells me that it won't be for long. These two couldn't have arrived together unless something bad happened. Yaisen doesn't like my Toussaint too much. Although it is possible to understand him, he is easily ahead of him in speed, and in the past it was the Reikage who were considered the fastest shinobi. However, I have suspicions that their dislike comes not only from this, but to dig deep, there was no time, and there was no point. This enmity has existed for more than 1 year and will continue for more than 1 year. But now I am faced with completely different problems. I should solve them first, and only then think about the rest. Thoughts run quickly and chaotically, replacing each other, but this does not stop me from giving instructions in the kitchen and waiting for the orders to be completed. I didn't hire a servant to serve us, I simply sealed the order in a scroll and went back. It's not that I don't trust the servants. After all, Sasuke was the one checking them out, but their flickering before my eyes is starting to bother me. I'm a kunoichi, not the daimyo's daughter, and I'm used to making do on my own. Be it killing enemies or regular cooking. This helps keep yourself in good shape, and by cooking yourself, you can be confident in the quality and composition of the food. Although I was sure here too, paranoia is inherent in all sane shinobi. It's really great that its presence lengthens life, in proportion to the problems and difficulties that arise from it. Well, at least that's how it was for me. Perhaps someone will disagree with this statement. Everyone has the right to do so. And you quickly, Naruto, the room in which the detachment accompanying my Tosen and Ero Sennin were located greeted me with an atmosphere that had not changed at all. Everyone present remained in the same places, and even the positions in which they sat did not change much. There was no point in delaying. I shrugged, one by one printing out the contents of the scroll and placing a simple treat on the table. But drinking tea without anything is too boring. My nervousness and excessive silence surprises Obito-san a little. This can be seen in his eyes and behavior, but he is in no hurry to ask questions. Apparently he noticed the glance that I cast at the stairs upstairs. However, to give him credit, he didn't doubt it for long. A couple of seconds and he and the Ero Sennin begin to tell all sorts of nonsense. I had already heard a lot, some was new, but their stories had one thing in common. They were able to distract me from thinking about what was happening on the second floor, for which I was sincerely grateful to them. They saved me from unnecessary hassle, and I even started smiling. However, after about 10 minutes I no longer felt like smiling. Firstly, my clone that I left in my room dissipated, and secondly, I saw my Tosen and Sasuke heavily descending the stairs. Their appearance was shabby, although I even downplayed the reality. No, both of their clothes are surprisingly intact, but everything else. I opened my mouth to ask how they managed to do this and immediately close it. Sometimes you need to be able to remain silent. It's a pity that such a simple truth did not reach me right away. In the past I could have avoided many problems, but it's better late than never. That is why I calmly wait for them to come down and, without question, begin to treat hematomas, cracks in the bones, and even a couple of broken ribs. I don't even want to know how they did it. The only hope is that this was their first and last showdown, but that's why I don't believe myself, huh? I purse my lips with dissatisfaction and barely have time to finish treating these two when Bai-san and Yae-san enter the room. Have you already said? Without even deigning to honor those present with a nod, the Reikage said rudely. No, I didn't have time. I'll tell you now, Tosan responded calmly and turned in our direction. They declared war on us for the Jinchuriki. And? I squint my eyes suspiciously. Tosan couldn't forget that Kao-chan is officially the Jinchuriki, not me. Moreover, I am sure that I didn't screw up anywhere and only the Jinchuriki, with the exception of the family, could know the truth, but not one of them was ever caught. Therefore, he cannot send me away so easily without telling me one of Konoha's main secrets. The presence of not only a Jinchuriki, but also a pseudo-Jinchuriki, Kyubi, would shake the balance of power too much. Those who want to accuse List of something unknown may immediately appear. I am sure that all Kakurazado will stand on the same front in this matter, and this is bad and he cannot fail to understand this. We don't know where the blow will come from, Tosan responded calmly. Our enemy hinted at an army, but we do not know where it is located or whether it exists at all, but we are confident in the enemy's ability to penetrate even the most guarded objects. We decided to gather all the Jinchuriki in one place, which would simplify their protection. Or will it make it easier to catch them? Remarked Sasuke, who now looked suspiciously pleased. I wonder why this is. I sit far enough away from him, and the others cannot cause such a reaction in him by default. Or like this, Tosan threw a dissatisfied look at him. Fishing with live bait? Nibi hisses displeasedly. How disgusting! Minato will not allow Kushina to be put in danger, Kurama says calmly. But the Reikage may not be like that, although he also won't risk his brother unnecessarily. But I can't say anything about yours. I suggested putting them on Turtle Island. Yae-san intervened in a dissatisfied tone. You will accompany Yujito. Tosan? I looked demandingly in his direction, simultaneously ignoring the commanding tone of the Reikage. He has no right to control me and should have learned that by now. Yes, and I just want to make sure that Red's conclusions are correct. My Tosan can't do this to Kachan. She must be safe. We extended the contract. Tosan nods in agreement. You and Sasuke will accompany the Jinchuriki Nibi on the way there, but not only that. Afterwards you will join the medical squad, and Sasuke will guard Kushina. Your task is to take care of the health and life of the Jinchuriki while we look for the enemy's hiding place and neutralize the threat. Risky. I wince, realizing that even here I could not prevent this senseless war. Although, how much time do we have? Analysts give a month, a short answer that makes you think and exchange glances with Sasuke. We don't know much, but during this time we can calculate the location of those Akatsuki bases that Uchiha, and then I, knew about. My summons will not be suitable for testing them, but both of Sasuke's summons quite. It's worth speeding up your search. Fine, I nod in agreement, giving the answer from the two of us. It's not difficult for us to walk a little in good company, and then we can use summons to quickly solve the accumulated problems. We must not allow this senseless massacre to begin. I don't want to lose friends again. However, it is also dangerous to do stupid things. It's worth waiting a little and delivering a well-calibrated blow. We have no right to let Kurozetsu go, but this time he should be destroyed rather than mercifully sealed with his mother. Kagaya must not escape. We won't allow it. Chapter 88. Plans? The conversation with Toussaint and the rakeage stirred up too many things in me, so for the rest of the time I was quite thoughtful. Memory and imagination are not only allies, and at that moment I was convinced of this. It is difficult, very difficult to get rid of the ghosts of the past. Even though I accepted them long ago and became stronger, doubts still attacked my rebellious soul. However, I gradually got over it, and even took part in conversations, simultaneously thinking about my plans for the future. I was too unhappy that Toussaint decided to hide me and not let me contribute to the war. I didn't want this to happen at all, the consequences were too destructive. There are other ways to achieve peace. Less dangerous and destructive, plus there will be no war. We won't have to reach our full potential. Still, no matter what I say, I'm afraid of our history repeating itself. I don't want to die and again let down those who have become close to me. However, I can't do it alone. You are not alone, Kurama's roar echoes in the subconscious. I feel his support, and indignation that he was forgotten. Exactly. Tanuki supports him, and soon the usual hubbub rises in the subconscious. Each Biju is in a hurry to say a few words, to convince me that I can count on their help. Thank you, I tell them with sincere gratitude. I can't imagine what I would do without you. I would die an idiot. I hear Red's embarrassed muttering, and the rest of the Biju are not far behind him. They weren't used to words of gratitude, and living with me didn't change that much. I smile barely, deciding not to focus on this and continue to follow the discussion of the details of how we will be sent to the island. Fortunately, the road will not be long, and we have enough strength to cheat a little and do everything in such a way as to win. If I remember correctly, Sasuke must know about some Akatsuki lairs. If I really wanted to, I could remember Yamato Taisha's story about where he was kept in that world. If I remember correctly, there are tens of thousands of Zetsu ready to fight. And even though they are individually weak and any Chunin, if not a Genin, even a strong one, can kill them, then their number kills the entire advantage. They act too harmoniously, understanding each other without words and not appreciating their lives at all. Suicide bombers, but this is scary. Our opponents can easily replenish their number if they had chakra. Considering the loss of Sanbai, they have enough of it, but the military forces of the villages have a limit. It is worth correcting this omission, but how? Let's attack openly. Kurozetsu will hide and continue his intrigues, which cannot be allowed. However, first we should at least find the necessary shelters, and only then decide how we will act. There is still time, albeit little. I catch Sasuke's questioning glance and close my eyes, then cast a thoughtful glance out the window and at the stairs, and return to the Uchiha again. I receive a nod of agreement in response. He clearly understood that I had a desire to have a heart-to-heart chat with him. That's great, but for now we can return to the discussions. Moreover, our route has already been approved and it is not too long or complicated. The emphasis was on speed and stealth. Overall correct. I like to do everything quickly, so I like the plan. There will be more chances to turn around on the island, because its features do not allow you to put up too many barriers, and all of them are highly specialized and will not work on me. However, the main thing is that toads, hawks, or snakes can be calmly called there, and they are unlikely to refuse to help us. But I haven't decided yet whether to send clones with them to test my assumptions or just give them approximate coordinates, and that's it? However, it is better to discuss this point with Sasuke. His snakes are best suited for reconnaissance on Earth. Naruto, is everything okay? Toussaint gently clarifies to me as soon as the Reikage finishes discussing the road and agreeing on the difficulties that may arise. Still, the path may not be far, but anything can happen. Apparently, they finally met Setsu and were able to correctly assess their capabilities. Well, or they're just playing it safe, because they can't know about the ability to copy someone else's appearance and chakra. Yes, I'm just not fully recovered yet, I shrug, leaning back with relief on the back of the sofa that he and I occupied together. It was difficult to get Yujito-san out, and there was also the constant expectation of an attack, you understand, Toussaint. Did it hit you hard? Is it just me or is he looking guilty? Oh wow. The Nepodists are 0 doctors. I had to replace an entire staff, plus the installation and maintenance of a complex of protective seals. I frown with displeasure. Only my purely Uzumaki chakra reserves saved me. Although this didn't help much either, I was about to drink a chakra-restoring drink, but they gave me the missing chakra. It's clear, an understanding nod, and he innocently clarifies. So what happened to the attacks? They tried to poison me a couple of times, but Sasuke worked a little with the servants, and the attempts stopped. Strangers couldn't get through my barriers, I shrug, pretending to cover a yawn with my hand. Nothing serious, trust me. Indeed, there are only 2 S-class Nukanins, Jiraiya chuckled, instantly receiving my indignant look and interested Toussaint in response. From now on, in more detail, noticing that Erosenin was in no hurry to continue, Toussaint hurried him. 3 days ago, don't worry, Sasuke and I intercepted them before they reached the city, Gama-san grunts in response. They are no longer a threat. But still, Toussaint objected. They are my trophy, I will only give them to Naruto, came Sasuke's calm answer, who at that very second began to play staring contests with the Hokage. I sigh resignedly, realizing that the heart-to-heart conversation did not change anything. Apparently, a lot of time will pass before they find a common language. The good news is that there is a barrier here too, so the departed Nepodists will not learn anything from what is said here. Toussaint, Sasuke, stop it, I asked tiredly. Indeed, leave your showdowns until Konoha, Jiraiya supports me, casting a reproachful glance at these two, and then transferring it to Obito-san and the second accompanying Toussaint. What example are you setting for your student and your subordinates in general, Minato? In response, 2 dissatisfied grunts are heard and the debaters simply turn away from each other. We look at each other with our godfather and sigh in sync. It just definitely won't happen. Okay, I clap my hands and decide to clarify. Toussaint, how long will you stay here? A couple of days, so what? The answer follows immediately. Nothing, I just wanted to clarify a couple of points and send letters with gifts home. I smile reassuringly, glad that I have time, which means I can calmly write messages not only to my mother and my brothers and sister, but also to Ikeoaji-san. This is where the issue gets really serious. You will have time, he nods in agreement, removing the dissatisfied expression on his face and smiling widely. When I did this, Sasuke called it an idiot's smile. That's good, then Sasuke and I will go check on Yujito-san, and Erosenin will help you get settled in the available rooms. I smile sweetly and, without waiting for any objections, I jump to my feet. Taking advantage of other people's confusion, I grab the Uchiha's hand and drag him upstairs. We need to discuss a couple of issues. There may not be time later, yet Toussaint has enough opportunities to not let us be alone for a couple of days, which he will spend with us, and then we will hit the road and there may not be an opportunity to discuss our actions. Phew! Happened. As soon as I stood up, I let go of Sasuke's hand and exhaled in relief. I'm no longer in a hurry to walk towards Yujito-san's room. Fortunately, her check didn't take much time, and after that we even managed to sneak into my room unnoticed and surround it with a couple of barriers. Toussaint will probably notice them, but he is unlikely to draw the right conclusions, especially considering the presence of Jiraiya at his side. This is a real distraction. Naruto, what do you think about all this? Sasuke phlegmatically clarifies to me as soon as the last barrier is activated. There's no point in waiting, I shrug, tiredly rubbing the bridge of my nose. We need to act. Agree. Do you have ideas? A thoughtful look in response, he is too calm. But I can't do this, so I start rushing from corner to corner. It doesn't help much, but standing still is beyond my strength. We know where some of the shelters are located. I stop, looking carefully at my betrothed. The main thing, undoubtedly, is where the unsuccessful clones of Hashirama are located, or where the statue of Geto Mazo is kept, which must be destroyed. And how? Sasuke raised an ironic eyebrow. In addition, it is not a fact that the coordinates of the shelters coincide. Don't know, I wince, admitting that I can deal with the destruction of the statue later. I can also try Amaterasu. Now the main thing is Kurozetsu, which means search for shelters. To search we will need hawks and snakes. They will be able to act autonomously. The main thing is to provide them with chakra. Let's say, what next? Sasuke grunts in response. They are not Akatsuki's rivals, even if their ranks are greatly thinned. Kunai with Jishiki, I shrugged my shoulders. You can also seal the clones in scrolls and send them with them. We don't need much, just destroy that tree and hide the statue. Only. Kurama snorted cheerfully in his subconscious. Shut up. I shush him, trying not to be distracted by arguments and other people's fun. We are discussing two serious things now. I will apologize later, but now he intervened a little off topic. It will be hard, hesitating a little, the Uchiha says. Who's arguing? I chuckle. However, we cannot allow senseless slaughter, not this time. Agree, he nods in response. But we will need help. It is too dangerous to get involved in all this alone. I will write my calculations to Aji-san. If you send him Nagato, he will be able to learn a lot and quite quickly. I put forward an idea. It's better not. Nagato is a little out of shape, Sasuke noted vaguely, and immediately hastened to add, apparently so that I wouldn't ask unnecessary questions. I'll talk to Enai-san and Shursoi-san. I think they will help. They will ask questions. It is better to take someone from our edition, I object, although I cannot help but admit that these two geniuses will greatly increase the combat potential of our group. Your Aji-san does too, Sasuke noted gloomily. Fair, I nod and add hesitantly. Then it's worth involving our peers. They are weaker. The Uchiha shrugs his shoulder displeasedly. I agree, Itachi and I and Shursoi-san are better. You can also Obito-san and Kakashi-sensei. But you will have to find the key to them through Rinne. I nod gloomily. It's okay for Aonai and Noriani. They won't refuse to take part in the adventure either, and they'll ask the same questions as yours. And they will be better at printing than me, but they still study longer with real professionals. So the composition of the teams has been decided, Sasuke nods. Now we just have to figure out how to convince them that we are doing the right thing, plus discuss the method of transfer. The call can move us, I shrugged my shoulders. It will not be as chakra-intensive as in the case of Horatian. True, you can't survive many people this way. If you find lairs, you can discuss a plan, and then divide into strike groups, my betrothed shrugs. This will be faster and more effective than attacking them one by one, and it will raise fewer questions. You can always rely on awakened interest and a cool call. There is little chance to check. It'll do, I agree. So I sit down to write letters. Some of them I will send with Toussaint, and secret ones with the help of summoning. You are in charge of setting the task for the snakes and hawks, and I am distracting Toussaint. Fine, he agrees and casts an interested glance at the door. I think it's time for me to go. Really, I snort quietly, feeling that my barriers are almost broken. Well, Toussaint. Apparently the society of Erosenin has a detrimental effect only on thoughts, but not on skills. However, you can always use the magic phrase. Kachan, I'll complain. I'm sure this will help avoid questions, at least for me. Chapter 89. The path to the island. A week has passed since our conversation, and 5 days have passed since we parted with Jiraiya. Fukasaku-sensei urgently summoned him to his place. All this time was quite eventful, yet transporting the rapidly recovering Yujito-san was not an easy task. No, she was not as energetic as I was. She complied with the bed rest prescribed by ironing, in other words, by me, but this was the most unpleasant thing. There was too much to carry around, and the speed had to be kept quite high, but no one complained, agreeing that it would be better this way. Jinchuriki should be hidden in a safe place as soon as possible. However, not only this exhausted me and Sasuke, we also had to secretly summon and work with our summons. Although the most difficult thing was something else, we constantly fed them with our chakra, extending the time that they could stay in our world. It's a rather complex activity that requires extreme concentration, but it allows us to keep our machinations a secret. Still, chakra can be transferred unnoticed, especially to hawks, but the moment of calling is much easier to track. Although even so, it was difficult to remain secretive. However, the inconvenience of contacting our calls did not cancel out everything else. The constant rush was exhausting, especially for Yujito-san and accordingly for me. Although there are still more of me, because of my abilities I reacted very painfully to a hostile attitude. It is unpleasant to see smiles, but to feel burning hatred. It's good that there weren't very many such people. However, this does not mean that we were greeted with open arms along the way. Relations between Kumo and Konoha were too tense, but they did not create any obstacles. In general, for the most part we were satisfied with this, although it was a little disappointing. Here we are treating their Jinchuriki, and they treat us like this. Well, let's face it, the main thing is that no one mixed poison into our food, and we'll survive the rest. The main thing is to get to your destination quickly. I have long considered myself an experienced shinobi who has gone through many battles and completed a whole bunch of a wide variety of tasks, but even so, I could not do anything with human nature. At the end of the week, when we reached the bay where the ship that would take us to Turtle Island was waiting for us, everyone relaxed a little. No, Sasuke and I were still on our guard, because we weren't walking at home or with our fellow countrymen, but in general, everyone lost their vigilance. And what is there to be afraid of in the depths of Kaminari no Kuni? Considering the presence of Jinchuriki Hachibi and Nibi in the squad? We were practically guests of honor. So what if the shinobi accompanying their Jinchuriki looked behind us rather than around us? The very fact of having a Reikage brother in the squad already meant a lot. All doors were open to us, and any wishes, within reason of course, were fulfilled instantly. In general, we relaxed. The attack on the guards watching our peace was quiet and unnoticeable. I had already forgotten how dangerous Shirozetsu can be and how skillfully they copy someone else's appearance. If Kurama had not noticed something was wrong in time, the consequences could have been the most disastrous, because they acted too harmoniously. They attacked in the pre-dawn hour, when attention was most scattered, captured the chakra and processed the bodies of the poor people they came across, completely copying their appearance and chakra. Well, then they took on their duties as duty officers, in other words, cooking. If someone ate this brew, which consisted almost entirely of spores, new zetsu would sprout from the idiots' stomachs, which would simultaneously drink them dry and then tear them apart. Lucky. Thanks to Kurama's kicks, I was one of the first to rise and, realizing who was in front of me, I slammed them into the ground with raisingans, simultaneously turning over the pots. As a result, if they had germinated even a second slower because of my chakra, I would have been chopped into ribbons. Well, after that there was suddenly no time for that. It's hard for me to imagine where the rest of Shirozetsu, who attacked at that same second, were hiding. Although it's understandable, they passed underground, deep enough that I didn't feel them and attacked only at the very last moment. However, it doesn't matter. The main thing is that we had to engage in battle with an enemy superior in numbers, who, among other things, had a working brain. It's difficult for me to explain in any other way that we were attacked not only head-on, but also from a distance. Zetsu, of course, are weak opponents, but not when you have to not only fight off 5 or 10 at the same time, making sure that they don't also suck out your chakra, and at the same time carefully watch your steps so that you don't get impaled on a wooden stake. Yes, and don't forget about the air. It turns out that tree thorns fly no worse than air bullets. Dangerous, especially since each thorn was covered with spores, and as soon as they rubbed themselves on a shinobi, they began to germinate, sucking out the chakra of the involuntary donor. By the way, a small part carried poisons of varying degrees of complexity, but at least not lethal. For the most part, these were those that affected the nervous system or were completely sleepy. They are not too dangerous, but not in battle, where any delay borders on death. In general, the battle did not last too long, a maximum of half an hour, but the consequences, of the 20 shinobi that made up our escort squad, only 5 survived, plus Sasuke and I and Bai-san and Yujito-san. Not much. 9 of the 24 that started their journey. The most offensive thing is that they died stupidly. We just didn't expect that our opponents, although they do not exceed the strength of weak Chunin, are all masters of Mokuton. And the germinating spores also came as an unpleasant surprise, as did Zetsu's ability to sprout sharp and long thorns on any part of his body. I myself saw how one clashed with this creature in taijutsu, blocked a clumsy blow, and then jumped away, because right where his hand came into contact with Zetsu's flesh, a wooden shoot grew that tore the skin and muscles in the blink of an eye. It is a pity that breaking the distance did not help him, and soon, he was already lying on the ground, and young shoots sprouted through his skin, eye sockets, nose and mouth. A terrible sight. If Zetsu in the previous world was such an inventor. As soon as the attack was repelled, a logical question arose: is it all over? Although I had another one spinning around, the clones behaved too intelligently, which means that there must be someone nearby who controls and coordinates them. But who? Kuro or Shiro Zetsu? As far as I knew, the first one had no clones, but the second one had a countless number of them. Moreover, they were absolutely identical, and it didn't matter how many of them we could kill, it did not affect their functionality in any way. However, something else was much worse. We could not be sure that we would not be attacked again. We had to throw food pills into our mouths and, quickly sealing the corpses, rush towards the bay, which, as luck would have it, was located a little away from the port cities and was used only shinobi. On the one hand, it was great, but on the other, there was another unpleasant surprise waiting for us. Did I already say that the ingenuity of the Shiro Zetsu of this world came as a surprise to me? I repeat, he has become too smart. Although, no, it's just that someone skillfully controlled it, using its real capabilities to the fullest. When we arrived at the bay, we were already met by Shiro Zetsu, who took the form of the ship's crew and those who were supposed to guard this place. Perfect disguise if it weren't for me and Kurama. It turned out to be unexpectedly easy to detect the substitution, and the angry nepotists did not doubt it. Lucky that my words were confirmed by Bai-san and Yujito-san, who were warned by their bijou, and in a fairly coordinated manner, first hit the camp, and then went to slaughter those remaining on the ship. The wonderful thing was that we didn't lose anyone in this adventure. Only a few were scratched by poison thorns, but I was sure that I could easily get them back on their feet. Exactly until the moment when the last disguised Shiro Zetsu was defeated. Thick fog appeared suddenly, reducing visibility almost to zero. Quiet and full of madness laughter rang out all around. This technique. I will never forget it. There are too many memories associated with her. Once upon a time, it seems in a past life, but in fact a couple of years ago, during a mission in the Land of Waves, Shursui-san said that 2 great swords were kept in the Kiri treasury, but Samahata and its owner were missing. I won't say that he lied. Perhaps something has changed over these couple of years, although Saiken was not aware of all this, but the fact itself. However, after a second my doubts about the information given by Shursui-san and Saiken disappeared. We were attacked not by the owner of Nobari, but by Raiga, the bearer of the Kiba blades. Branch lightning on the water are terrible opponents. It cost them nothing to destroy our ship. The gunpowder detonated, forcing us to jump onto the water. Protecting yourself from residual electricity and not getting hit again was difficult, and the presence of thick fog only made matters worse. We have been led into a trap. Tired, wounded, and with several unconscious comrades in our arms, we were easy enough targets. The 5 escorts that survived the last battle were quickly put out of action. More precisely, some were charred due to the strong charge, and the rest were artlessly stabbed from the back. The only thing that saved the 4 of us was that we could protect ourselves from lightning with the cover of Bijou, Bai-san and Yujito-san, and Susano, Sasuke, who also covered me. If it weren't for this, we could have lost in the first minutes. They very cleverly led us into a trap. However, even taking this into account, we were at a disadvantage. The water clones were too distracting, and the vague shadows that the fog projected made it difficult to detect the enemy. An attempt to blow it away was unsuccessful. It instantly appeared again, and the bay had 2 steep slopes and a narrow exit to the sea, and on land there was only one convenient approach, but also not the widest, and that one was blocked by a small outpost. However, we were able to get to land and even regroup. Did not help. Now another detachment of Shirozetsu was added to the water clones, and soon Nukenin appeared next to them, and they were quite strong and lucky, since they not only got into the bingo book, but were also able to stay alive for a sufficient amount of time. We found ourselves in a dangerous situation, without the opportunity to fight at full strength, because there were peaceful villages nearby, an essential fact for a Jinchuriki, or because of the possible consequences. The Reikage would hardly have appreciated the appearance of a full-fledged Susano on his territory. There was no choice. Gyuki, Metatabi, tell Bai-san and Yujito-san to come closer, I asked quietly, creating another jutsu of air bullets and mowing down the ranks of enemies. However, not particularly successfully. Instead of them, new ones appeared almost immediately. What are you up to? Kurama is quietly interested, watching how Sasuke, despite the high humidity, easily uses fire destruction on a fairly large piece of land in front of us. Let's leave by air, give a message to the Reikage, get to Turtle Island on our own, I answered in chopped phrases, immediately starting to put together seals for the summoning. Did you pass it on? Yes, they will now, Nibi and Gyuki responded in unison. However, I no longer needed an answer. 2 figures rather suddenly appeared in front of me, and Sasuke could barely resist shortening them by a head. Instead, he stuck his katana into the ground and sent an electrical blast toward Shirozetsu. He was supported by Katon and Suiton Jinchuriki, providing me with the necessary space to maneuver. We're leaving, I called upon the largest possible hawk. I hear indignant purring. Sorry, but if I call another one now, we won't be able to protect him, a dissatisfied snort, but Hawk calmed down and allowed himself to be climbed on. Sasuke, you have protection. Understood, a short answer, and his Susanoo rapidly increases, covering the hawk and us at the same time. In time, Shirozetsu, who saw our escape, became distraught, rushing forward through the still operating techniques, discharging them with their bodies and opening access forward to the Nukenin and luckier comrades walking behind. It's a pity, but despite the danger, the hawk was overloaded and took off wildly slowly. Sasuke tried to keep opponents away from his Susanoo, but even with my constant feeding, it turned out badly. Attack yourself. The phantom samurai was only permeable to the chakra of its owner, but not others. The only thing we could do for him was to generously spend projectiles, tying the remains of explosion seals to them. However, this did not save much. No, the hawk took off, but Sasuke's Susanoo was surrounded by Shirozetsu. However, soon some of them fell away, because the Nukenin who were in the wings began to pour all the jutsu that they knew on us, who were slowly moving away. This did not last long, because having moved a couple of tens of kilometers from the coast, we decided to give battle. Here you could not worry about the civilian population, the main thing is not to use Baijidama, and the rest does not cause such destruction, and calmly let Gyuki out to frolic. Having fully released his power, he becomes invulnerable to lightning, although the Sandame Reikage would argue with this, and the water becomes his ears, neutralizing the effects of thick fog. The discussion of the plan that came into our heads was not long. It's difficult to say that he satisfied everyone, but we had no other choice. That's why I asked the hawk I called to descend and come back when we were 5 meters above the water. A ridiculous distance for a trained shinobi, but you don't have to worry about the integrity of the summon. I don't want to quarrel with him, do I? Fortunately, the bird was understanding and did everything as asked. It's our turn to strike. However, they didn't let me disperse much. Bai-san, without even reaching the water, completely released his biju and created a real storm. It's good that he hit us and we weren't harmed, but it was difficult to say so about our persecution. After the attack by the biju, few survived. The fog began to rapidly dissipate. Corpses swayed peacefully in the water, and in the distance enemies could be seen rapidly fleeing. Victory. However, it was not yet complete. The Nukenin fled, but the surviving Shirozetsu began to regroup. Leaving again by air? Not a bad option, especially since we have time to summon several hawks and there won't be much need to defend them. Shirozetsu simply will not be able to grow quite dangerous wooden structures from water, and to sprout from their body. These will be single spikes, nothing more. I cast aside my doubts and again begin to put together the summoning seals, seeing how Bai-san regains his human appearance. There is no need to explain anything, my thoughts were already conveyed to them by the biju, and Sasuke knows me too well. There, without any questions, he began to launch fire jutsu into the sky, saturating it with his chakra, beginning to concentrate a large accumulation of sanchakra above us. Kirin. Reiton's strongest technique he knows. As soon as the lightning dragon enters the water, there will be an electric hell around for a couple of tens of kilometers, even if the Uchiha can give it a certain direction and framework. However, it is better to run far away by that time. It's good that the hawks will handle this with a bang. Kirin. As soon as we climbed onto the birds and flew high enough, Sasuke voiced the name of the technique and an electric dragon rushed past us, almost hitting us with its glowing side. This will definitely throw them off the scent, I sigh with relief, involuntarily shuddering at the picture below. Creepy. I hope civilians will not be harmed. Well, if not, the Reikage will be able to take care of them. We must warn Reikage-sama, Yujito-san remarks, barely shouting above the wind whistling in his ears. We won't be returning Sasuke snaps, who doesn't even seem to raise his voice. I suggest getting to the island and writing from there, I calmly notice. Anyway, in our situation it will not be possible to write. In response I hear curses, but she agrees with me. They don't really have a choice. Well, at least they know where we should fly, not like I do. The island is constantly moving, and in that world I was in too much of a hurry to go to war, not remembering the way, even if in the end they were tired, and we covered the last half hour of the journey on our own legs. Otherwise they refused to lead us further. Mayhem. However, we were already happy that they would give us a break. Chapter 90. Waiting. Arriving on the island turned out to be quite routine, although there were some difficulties, but all controversial issues were resolved by Bai-san and Yujito-san. The shinobi who met us knew them very well and, without arguing, allocated us rooms, rather small and uninhabited, the standard option, where you would even have to sleep on a futon, and then they left us to contact the Reikage. However, Sasuke and I were not going to sit idly by either. It didn't take me much time to secure the room allocated for me, and then contact my two-san through the toads. I did not go into specific details, but I described the battle in sufficient detail in the letter I sent. I hope this will help protect my Ka-chan, although Kurama will tell her the details, albeit a little later. After all, I need the whole two-san. Naruto, what do you think about all this? As soon as the toad disappeared from our eyes, Sasuke clarified. Zetsu in this world is stronger than in that one, I know thoughtfully, plopping down on the spread futon. No, I'm not going to sleep, but fatigue makes itself felt, and it's easier to recover while sitting. Not stronger, more organized, Sasuke corrected me. The strength and abilities are the same, but used more competently. Agree, I nod. In some ways he's right. I've already encountered everything that Shirozetsu used, it's just that only a few used it back then, and Kurozetsu was always flashing nearby. What's worse is that I thought that the puppeteer had almost no puppets left, but he found new ones. Are you talking about a bunch of rinnegan? Sasuke chuckled knowingly. About them, about whom else? I respond dissatisfied. The Uchiha might not have voiced basic things. There are too many of them, plus, although they act in a way that is typical for loners, they have some kind of concept of working in a team. I gloomily watch as Sasuke rolls his eyes. Don't need this, sir. Dobe, stop panicking, he sighs tiredly and rubs the bridge of his nose. It's unlikely that Kurozetsu came out of the shadows here. The rinnegan obey not him, but one of the surviving Akatsuki. There are not so many known ones, considering all the skirmishes. There are no more than 2 or 3 of them. Most likely there are 2 of them. One is a figurehead leader and a second executor who knows a little more than the rest. It is truth too, I agree, feeling that his calmness is gradually being transferred to me. What do you say about seeking refuge? Today the last 2 known to us will be tested, the Uchiha tells me calmly. Which ones? I respond somewhat confusedly, mentally hitting myself on the forehead. I shouldn't have given up communication with the summons on Sasuke, limiting myself to only the role of a chakra transmitter. But now it's clear where that burst of chakra that I gave away went. Checking about 30 shelters in a week, worthy of respect. The one in which I was in our world after my eyes were transplanted and the one in which Yamato was kept, he responds quietly, carefully coming closer and sitting behind me, he hugged me. Warm. I want to relax and not think about anything else. I'm tired of the war, I'm tired of being in constant tension, I just want to live, but this is exactly what is not available to me yet. What about the rest? I decide to clarify what I don't understand right away, so as not to tear my hair out later. I sigh tiredly and relax in someone else's arms. Soon, very soon, everything will be over and we will be able to live in peace, not thinking about the evil of the world. Empty, he shrugs, but noticing my dissatisfied look, he answers in more detail. The bulk has been empty for a long time and is completely unsuitable for quick settlement. In fact, there are bare walls. Others left recently, but are unlikely to return there soon. I gave information to the Kage, and now everything there is teeming with shinobi from allied countries. Fine, I nod contentedly, involuntarily closing my eyes to better feel the light stroking in the abdominal area. It's not time yet, but after we will be able to fulfill our old dream, I promise. So all we can do is wait? Yes, Sasuke agrees. I smile barely perceptibly and simply plunge into a feeling of peace. Now nothing depends on us anyway. We should have a good rest and gain strength so that when the summons check the shelters, we will be fully armed. In the end, we still have to leave behind a substitution, otherwise someone will suspect something. I'll rest a little and start working on super-duper strong clones with a reserve of chakra, like the real me or Sasuke. Quite a tedious task, but with me it's easier. The clone will be connected to Kurama and he will easily pump any amount of chakra into it, even if the quality suffers from the distance, but it's tolerable. I have only one question: what to do with the Sasuke clone? He doesn't have a bun like me and pumping even small volumes of chakra at a distance is not possible for him. We'll have to be clever with the seals, not only to give strength, but also to preserve the necessary energy, and also hope that we can handle everything in less than a day or 2. Time flies quickly and unnoticed. It would seem that I closed my eyes and fell asleep, and now it's the evening of the next day and I'm finishing my work on our clones. Fortunately, there were no problems with the seals. Similar research was carried out by Tobirama with the help of Midōheim. All I had to do was study them, which I did in due time. What was more difficult was to seal enough of Sasuke's chakra so that his clone could drink it at any time and restore his reserve. Without this, alas, there is no way, because the snakes finally got on the trail of Kurozetsu. All that remained was to set a trap for him, but this was the most difficult thing. Overly cautious and has all the abilities of his white counterpart. We'll have to be quite cunning and use snakes to transport our carcasses. He definitely won't notice them, especially if you choose the right color and type, and don't go deep. True, I couldn't remember the name of the technique. I just realized that it was similar to Kekai, Gamma Hira *, which Jiraiya showed me. Not really though. But this is not important. The main thing is that it will be almost impossible to notice us, but we ourselves will see everything that is happening. I barely had time to finish with the clones when a message came from Itachi and Aoi and I, who with their teams were the first to reach one of the targets. Well, more precisely, both last refuges were quite important. In the place where Sasuke once was, the Akatsuki headquarters was located. A bunch of new Knin were found there, and our brothers were supposed to set up an ambush there. More precisely, they simply had to eliminate everyone they could, scaring off Kurozetsu, if there was one, and remain to sort out the wealth that had fallen on them. At the same time, in the shelter that Yamato Taicho told me about, many Shirozetsu were found. It's good that they were not yet ripe and we had time. We should have set up an ambush there, using the services of the snakes. Well, the arrival of Kurozetsu should have been ensured by a reconnaissance team led by Anko Mitarashi, who accidentally wandered into that direction. By the way, she also managed to find refuge in that world. Interesting coincidence, isn't it? Even without knowing everything we knew, she was able to pick up the enemy's trail, giving us additional insurance. What will this insurance consist of? It's quite simple. The awakening of Shirozetsu is impossible without the direct presence of Kurozetsu, who will control the process. Ideally, a statue of Geto Mazo would also be needed, but this is where problems could begin. There are no people who can call her, but here another factor comes into play. Kurozetsu is not an ordinary person, if he ever was a person. He has the genes of Rikudo's ancestor. He could even read the plate that is kept in the Nakano Uchiha temple and change what is written there. In other words, he can see like an Uchiha, write like an Uchiha, which means he has Uchiha genes. Having united with one of Shirozetsu, he could easily replace Nagato, which he apparently did. For traces of the statue, fresh, I want to note, as Sasuke said, were noticed in 10 checked shelters, and in the last one it was not so long ago. The conclusions suggested themselves and didn't really suit me, but when has the universe ever cared about this? That's right, never? Naruto, are you finished? Sasuke carefully enters my room, who had previously skillfully distracted the attention of Bai-san and Yujito-san from me. Although I don't even want to know what he talked to them about. In vain, Nibi says thoughtfully. Yes, I answer both at once. And how? The Uchiha raises an eyebrow questioningly. The clones are ready, the seal into which you should transfer chakra to. I point my finger in the direction of Sasuke's clone, carefully outlining the approximate location. All you have to do is fill it out, and you can move out. It's worth sealing them first and releasing them a little later, my betrothed remarks, approaching his attentively listening clone. For what? His words baffle me. We will move with the help of the snakes, which I will call here, but we need cover. Patiently, like a small child, the Uchiha begins to explain. That's why we're going for a walk around the island. I have already received permission. Isn't it too difficult? I note doubtfully. No, just right, deadpan answer. Well, if you say so, I decide not to quarrel with him over trifles. In the end, he wants to take a walk with me arm in arm on the island. Why refuse? We still have time, and that's the main thing. A couple more agonizing minutes pass, during which Sasuke transfers chakra into the seal, and then he calls upon the serpents, and we go to fulfill his plan. No, in some ways I even supported her. Turtle Island is quite beautiful, and the wildlife is unusual. True, all the advantages are covered by surveillance, but we managed to get rid of it quite quickly and unnoticed. It's not for nothing that the Uchiha clan is famous for its illusions. It's not a problem for them to impose genjutsu on their territory. Well, considering Sasuke's Mangekyo and my completely restored chakra reserve, it was not difficult to escape surveillance and replace ourselves with clones, and after that we hid inside a small snake, which was supposed to take us to the right place and ensure covert penetration. We could only wait, the most unpleasant part of the plan, and sad. If only I was alone, and not with the Uchiha, with this preoccupied asshole. While I was fighting back and trying to knock some common sense and conscience into the head of the distraught Sasuke, the snake moved first to the world of summoning, and then to the closest possible place near the shelter we needed. Well, what can I say about him? Glade, forest, everything, like everywhere else. The shelter also did not shine with originality. Tunnels dug with the help of doton, reinforced in some places, non-working lamps installed in some places, that's all the wealth. The only thing I couldn't help but notice was the large dimensions. The tunnels seemed endless, and the skeleton of some unknown animal at the entrance. All. Otherwise, nothing remarkable, but they have not yet gone down to the lowest floors, where the tree with Shirozetsu was located. It was then that it immediately became clear that this was not another destroyed shelter, but the most active one, as the statue of Gedo Mazo clearly hinted at. I had to suppress the passionate desire to destroy her. It still wouldn't work quickly. With regret, I turn away from what I saw, through a small window. I have absolutely no idea how it works, but I'm glad that I can observe everything that happens in the real world. Into the real world, statues. I decide not to tempt fate anymore and ask Sasuke to send the snake hides. Oddly enough, he doesn't even try to argue, agrees with my request immediately, and soon, the snake hides in some incomprehensible crevice on the wall. The location is convenient, allowing you to view the entire room, but she herself is out of sight of the others. Now we can only wait and hope that our plan will end successfully. We take too much risk by doing this. Chapter 91. Kurozetsu. Grab a kunai and throw it forward, increasing the number using shadow cloning. Fold the seals and, slamming them on the floor, make a real palisade of earthen stakes grow. The heat scorches nearby and small fiery projectiles, in which shurikens are hidden, rush past. I jerked away from Kurama's warning cry and rushed towards Sasuke, who instantly covered me from Shirozetsu's retaliatory attack. No, I definitely think that Mokuton should be the property of only Senju, and better yet, Uzumaki in general. Kami-sama, it all started so well. We waited for Kurozetsu to appear in our field of vision, and he was very preoccupied with something and completely ignored the surrounding space, so he did not notice how Sasuke got out of the snake and summoned Susano. In general, he did not have time to disappear before he was pierced by a blade, strikingly familiar by the way. Only Itachi's Susano had one like this, at least only he could seal it in a vessel that looked like a pumpkin. I didn't have time to ask where my betrothed got someone else's weapon. Kurozetsu, realizing that his time was running out, shouted something furiously before ending up completely in the vessel. For a couple of moments nothing happened, and then the first Shirozetsu opened their eyes. At the very beginning it was not so difficult to fend off hesitant attacks, but that was only at the beginning. Less than a minute passed, and the Zetsu clones became more and more numerous, and their attacks became incessant. We were lucky that at the very beginning we decided to fight shoulder to shoulder, making our way to Gedo Mazo. However, very soon we realized how flawed our plan was. Our escape route was cut off, but we couldn't even get close to the statue. With all our strength, we were powerless against hundreds of thousands of clones, whose numbers were constantly growing. The worst thing was that we could only rely on each other, for we could not even summon snakes or toads. It just didn't make sense. Small ones won't help, and bosses or the strongest fighters will cause suicide. They simply won't fit here, and they won't have room to maneuver. It was exactly the same with Kurama and the full-fledged Susano. We could only use taijutsu and the simplest techniques, carefully ensuring that even such techniques did not hit the walls or ceiling. Being buried alive, that's not at all what I dream about. From thoughts and frantic attempts to come up with a tolerable plan, another wooden stake whizzes by his ear and immediately wooden spears grow out of the floor. Sasuke and I have to jump in different directions, and the distance between us is immediately filled by numerous Shirozetsu. Badly. Fortunately, Sasuke has my Haration mark on him, so it doesn't cost me anything to move towards him. I curse and use air bullets, followed by a couple of air blades. I put the bare minimum of chakra into the jutsu, so they were only able to break the first wave, but only push back the second one a little. Scoop up some of Shikaku's chakra and force part of the floor to turn into an earthen swamp, and then move to Sasuke sparkling with lightning. The air around him smells of ozone, something worse, I don't feel a breeze, and the movement of air masses in the cave is minimal, the air is stale. This is not a problem when you come and immediately leave, but for a battle, soon, very soon we will feel a lack of oxygen, especially since the Uchiha constantly spits fire. The techniques are not strong, and little chakra is invested in them, but this will not change the fact that oxygen runs out faster than it is replenished. Alas, tree stakes, which once again almost send us to our forefathers, do not improve air quality. Naruto, we need to get out. The quiet chirping of lightning and thickets of tree roots disintegrate into dust under the influence of two-ball lightning. I need a tag. I rightly note, knowing full well that we don't really have a choice. The territory is too small and there are tons of stone above our heads. We simply cannot use strong jutsu, and we cannot cope with weak ones, not against Setsu who has gone crazy. Although who knew that they were already awakened and they only needed a little impulse? On the surface, next to each cave, 3 or 4 jishiki are hidden, instantly sounds in response, and Amaterasu, obedient to the will of its creator, begins to devour everything in a circle of 10 meters. It doesn't take long before I immediately begin to realize that keeping that much fire burning and not letting it spread is too difficult for Sasuke. Don't be stupid. I put my hand on his shoulder, restoring the spent chakra. Amaterasu in a confined space is too dangerous. It burns everything, even the air. We'll just suffocate. TCH. He responds dissatisfied and the fire disappears, but is replaced by another right-on jutsu. Come quickly. When I say it's time, take Susano away, I respond briefly, trying to tune into Jishiki, and I succeed. Let's. A moment of darkness before our eyes, and then we fall out not far from the entrance. We can't hesitate. We both understand this, so we put together the seals of summoning surprisingly synchronously, and then we soar up on huge birds. If we hesitated even for a moment, practice shows that wooden stakes are no weaker than stone ones. It's worth contacting Itachi, Sasuke remarks calmly. Better with Aoi, I object, mentally imagining how he conveys the message to his brother, who at this moment can fight, and indeed, hawks are not comrades for the crow, and it is useless to call the snake to such a height. At the same time, offer to drag us with a reverse call. If they are finished, I will patch them up. Agree, he briefly nods in response, and immediately begins to make seals, summoning a small hawk who has just learned to fly. I frown, but do not interfere, knowing full well that such little ones are only seemingly harmless. In fact, they have already begun training a long time ago, and have something to surprise the enemy with. A few more minutes pass harmlessly enough. The summoned hawks fly towards the sun, and we remain silent, trying to analyze the past battle. I don't like its ending. We were only able to complete one of many tasks, and we also riled up Shirozetsu. No, without their leader they are not so dangerous, as confirmed by the recent battle, essentially an ordinary fight. They even used jutsu to a minimum and rather interfered with each other than actually attacked. If they were at least a little more collected, we would be finished. More precisely, we would survive, but at what cost? I'm not sure that I would have been able to escape so easily. I would have had to let the bijou out to frolic, the same Shikaku, for example, but I'm frankly scared to imagine how Geto Mazo could have reacted to him. The moments of the Fourth World War and that feeling when the bijou is being pulled out of you are too fresh in my memory. I am not eager to experience the same thing a second time, although I am sure that at the moment I am much more prepared, but Madara was not the only one who opposed us. Naruto, they had to retreat, but they won't refuse help. Sasuke's quiet voice distracts me from gloomy thoughts. Get ready, now they will call us back. Hi! I breathe a sigh of relief. Since they didn't immediately tell me about the losses, it means there are none. Now all I have to do is wait a little and I will be completely sure that everything is fine with them. About 5 more minutes pass before we are transported to the world of the Hawks, where we are already greeted by Neji, who politely greets us. You have to push your impatience much deeper and politely greet him in return, enduring 10 minutes of leisurely chatter. No, I don't mind talking with him, and many of the news that he recounted are very interesting, but now was not the time. One thing was reassuring: time in the world of the Hawks moves much faster than in reality, so the delay will not be particularly noticeable. And in any case, it's much faster than getting to ours ourselves. Well, and considering the fact that we need to return to Turtle Island as soon as possible, we should be grateful to the hawks that they agreed to help without demanding anything in return. More precisely, the only requirement is to call them into our world more often, plus assistance in training young people. The chakra of shinobi from our world has a positive effect on chicks, increasing their potential, as well as their learning speed significantly, but we would have done this without it. They are very good helpers and it is beneficial for us to make them stronger. However, in order to fulfill their demand, we will have to take one student at a time and, having secured the consent of the hawks, give them the opportunity to write down their names in the summon scroll. Not the biggest price to pay for such help, right? Exactly 10 minutes later, Neji remembered why we actually came to their world and deigned to send us to where we were going. During a little more and we would have completely lost patience, but otherwise we were able to keep our face. However, as soon as we found ourselves in a small camp that defeated the teams of my brothers and Sasuke, dissatisfaction with the delay evaporated without a trace, and surprise appeared instead. I didn't expect that our brothers would gather a detachment of 20 people. Moreover, 20 people are so strong. Itachi, Aoi, Nariko, Shurusui, Karen, Neji, Shikamaru, Hana and a couple of other guys I didn't know were the same age as my brother, but the rest turned out to be Uchihas and Uzumakis, a total of exactly 20 people. All wrinkled, but intact. If anyone had any wounds, as evidenced by the tears and blood on their clothes, Karen had patched them up long ago. Well done! It was not for nothing that I gave her protection and drilled into her the basic knowledge. Ryanin turned out to be first class, he will soon gain experience, and even put Bachan in his belt. No, I understand Nariko and Karen, even Shurusui, but the rest what fate? I stare at Hyuga in surprise, and then turn my gaze to Kiba's sister. We were never friends, although we communicated well here and there. It's even better here, because I often ran into the hospital and Yamanako's shop, and there we would collide arguing until we were hoarse about the properties of some plants and how best to remove fleas. True, because of the Uchiha, I was more of a cat person, but it's up to us to argue and find a common language didn't interfere. I was your brother's teammate, Inuzuka smiled sweetly. Who could he turn to for help if not me? Eh? I glance at Neji. You called me a genius. In response I receive a grin and a complete feeling that they are mocking me. I decide not to focus on this, I'll clarify later, and look towards Nara. I'm too lazy to fight, having momentarily taken a break from contemplating the clouds, he said in response to my gaze. Yes, are you kidding me? I jump up indignantly at their words, receiving outright laughter in response. However, Sasuke, who grabbed me across the stomach and blocked my arms, saved the comedians from a couple of bruises. It's a pity. I sigh resignedly and, after waiting for them to calm down, I become interested. Did you manage to destroy the nuke? Not all of them, some were able to escape, but we did not pursue, having miraculously avoided traps at the very beginning, Aoi grimaced with displeasure. Well, and later, out of nowhere, white asexual creatures came from and pushed us back even from the premises that we had captured. We had to retreat and secure the camp with a barrier. Did they really follow you? I raised my eyebrows in surprise, trying to scan the surrounding area and not finding anything. It's strange, my brother won't lie, will he? No, they stayed in the caves. He shook his head negatively. However, we decided not to take risks. It's clear, I nod in agreement, completely approving of this decision. What do you have? Wild curiosity lights up in other people's eyes. Everything worked out, Sasuke's voice sounds openly smug. Nei-san, thanks for lending me. A purple glow appears around us, and then my fiancé's not fully formed Susano holds out the blade with which he pierced Kuro's Zetsu, Itachi. When everything returns to normal, you will need to unpack what is hidden, and only you can do this. Fine, Itachi nods with satisfaction, and now an incomplete Susano appears around him, which takes the blade and it is painted in the color of his phantom samurai. I frown, now I remember. The name of the sword is Tatsuka. Tatsuka Tsurugi. Treasure from the times of Rikudo. They say that people sealed there find themselves in a genjutsu from which it is impossible to escape. Only now do I understand that it's all over. No, the problem with Shirozetsu will not go away, but there will be no war. At least the one we remember. Shirozetsu, left without a leader, is unlikely to become a serious threat to the United Army, and the absence of resurrected ones makes the army vulnerable. Not to mention the fact that the Nukenin, who did not receive the expected reward, will soon scatter, and it is much easier to kill them than the risen dead. Soon, very soon, everything will end and we will be able to live in peace. Epilogue. We didn't stay with our brothers for long, and soon we had to part ways. Sasuke and I went back to Turtle Island, and Itachi and Aoi's troops were needed by the Hokage. However, by that time little worried us. We decided to temporarily quiet down, and for good reason. Even if no one noticed our substitution, there were more observers, and now it was so easy to leave, and there was no way to enter the island. We barely made it in time for the arrival of the first Jinchuriki, who turned out to be Fu. A sweet and cheerful girl with whom we quickly found a common language, despite all the dissatisfaction of her companions. Then news came that the first attacks by Shirozetsu and the Nukenin had begun. The Jinchuriki began to arrive one by one, and the old man Oinoki brought them from Iwa with the help of his jutsu. It instantly became fun, because the new Jinchuriki Sona turned out to be a little boy who was not shy for adults for long, quickly realizing that most people here were like him. Well, I confess I also had a hand in his liberation, but then Akira opened up on his own. True, he couldn't play any special tricks, nor could he hide from experienced shinobi, but he made his nannies run around a lot. The last of the Jinchuriki to arrive were Gaara and my Ka-chan. Our joy knew no bounds. True, only ours. The respected escorts of all countries clearly did not know what the Hokage's two treasures were capable of at once, his wife and daughter. My fellow citizens were now looked at with wild sympathy, and at us with sacred awe. Moreover, the reasons for everyone were completely different. Akira was delighted with our ideas. Fu had simply never met such bright people. Bai-san himself was an inventor and easily accepted our quirks, and Yujito-san did not think that a Jinchuriki could be so positive. The only one who was more or less prepared for our antics Gaara, but it was impossible to confuse him with anything. Wildly impenetrable, but a loyal friend who never refuses help. Well, the rest quickly realized that there was no point in limiting us too much, so they just made sure that our enthusiasm did not cause any special destruction, and washed their hands of the rest. We spent a total of a month on the island. This is exactly how long it took for the combined forces to find and eliminate all the Nukenin who sided with Akatsuki. With Shirozetsu it was more difficult. They managed to destroy the bulk of them in the first weeks by localizing the source, but many of them scattered around the world and reminded of themselves for many decades. The only drawback is that during the hottest battles, the caves with the tree on which the Zetsu clones grew collapsed, closing access to their depths. They didn't dig them up right away, and there were already a lot of problems with the escaped Shirozetsu. Well, after that Sasuke and I visited there. No, we didn't cut down the tree at the roots. We were only worried about the statue of Gedo Mazo and the sandbai sealed there. Pulling him out in a dilapidated cave was the height of idiocy, especially since we were only able to get there with the help of small and nimble snakes. In general, we just climbed in and made sure that she was there and no one touched her. They were convinced, imbued with it, and began to look for a way out. Oddly enough, it was suggested by Aji-san and it boiled down to one thing: remove the statue to a quiet place on our island. It is there, in its very center, that it will be safe for a long time, and it will be possible to try to destroy it without unnecessary observers. Akeoaji's proposal was accepted with a bang. All that was left was to persuade me to help Nagato, the head of the clan Aji-san, and my Ka-chan took over the conversation with him. I don't even know, even though I was allowed into the family brain-settling session for the slightly patched-up Nagato, I couldn't utter a word, just nod. Truly, Akai Shishio no Habanero is scary. I have never seen my mother so impressively flexing her fists and passionately hammering generally accepted truths into the head of a poor relative. At some point I sympathized with him, but quickly remembered how his revenge could turn out, and at the right moments I simply agreed. No, I understood that this time we managed to avoid many casualties, even if the army was battered, but you must agree that a tenth of the troops and more than half. Is the difference significant? That's what I thought too. Well, so that no one else would think of collecting Biju and returning Shinju to the world, it was necessary to hide his body, or better yet, destroy it. The latter could not be done even with the help of Amaterasu, which means it needs to be hidden. The only place where no one will set foot any time soon is the Uzushio Temple. Only I can get there, and not with the help of ordinary jutsu, only because of the power of a sage. In general, heart-to-heart conversations with Nagato, as well as his partial treatment, it was decided to carry out the full treatment after, continued for another week. True, as a gesture of goodwill, Konan also had to be patched up, but I had nothing against it. Not only by patching her up, but also by catching Sasuke, to whom she gave a whole lecture that girls shouldn't be treated that way. As expected, they didn't listen to me, they simply shut me up with a kiss and dragged me into a secluded corner. I won't say that I didn't like it, but the mood to swear disappeared instantly. However, I could not help but admit that he was in his right. Konan was following me, and if he had not stopped her, who knows whether I would have managed to win or not. Most likely not. In the state I was in, I would have lost. Too tired and exhausted while healing Yujito-san. That is why I cooled down as quickly as I started up. He didn't kill them, although he could have. As soon as Konan was put on her feet and Nagato's body was put in relative order, Bachan is still the best ironing in the world, it was decided not to shelve our plan. We were already delayed, and the cave with Geto Mazo had to be dug out any day now. In general, at the family council it was decided that Nagato, Aji-san, Sasuke and Konan would come with me. She also wanted Kachan and Biechan, but the first couldn't because of the twins, and should someone have distracted the Hokage's attention, and the second because of the pile of wounded people waiting for her attention. We set out immediately, under the pretext that we wanted to visit our native island, stoically enduring that Itachi and Shisui-sen also joined our procession. I understand their curiosity very well, but they will not have the chance to see the beauty of Uzushio. As soon as we got to the beginning of the traps, with their consent, I sealed everyone in a huge scroll, which Aji-san handed to me. Well, and then, flying through the traps was hard for me. The bulky scroll behind my back was making itself felt, and if it weren't for those months of training with the Hawks, I might not have been able to cope. However, I survived. I got to the temple and unsealed everyone. About an hour was spent enthusiastically studying the statues of Rikudo's heirs, and Rikudo himself in particular. It was the first time I saw tears in Aji-san's eyes, and I couldn't bring myself to remind him why we were here. This was his dream. Set foot on the land of our clan again. It may take a long time before my clanmates can come here, but every Uzumaki felt an inner uplift. I saw how Nagato's eyes lit up, how Aji-san enthusiastically whispered something under his breath, reverently touching everything he saw. For us, Uzushio is more than an island, it is our homeland. Everyone felt this, so we tried not to distract and silently settled down in a corner, carefully watching this sleeping Uzumaki. That's exactly the impression we made. Spit. However, impressions tend to dull, and duty cannot but remind itself. Soon we remembered why we were here and began to purposefully look for a room that could accommodate the statue of Geto Mazo, keeping it from the outside world for the time being. Soon such a place was found. However, it was not a cave, but a place in front of the temple. It's an open area, but given the nature of the temple and my clan's village in general, it was decided that this place was suitable. However, Itachi delayed us a little, reminding us that the root cause was sealed in his sword and offering to get rid of it first, which we did. Still, Kuro Zetsu did not have the durability of Geto Mazo and burned quite well in the flames of Amaterasu. Especially when 3 Uchihas use it at once, and 3 Uzumakis hold the barrier in which an incomprehensible black creature was writhing. We destroyed it, not even ashes remained, I'm sure of it. The shinobi world can sleep peacefully, now no one will influence the decisions of the strongest representatives of the great clans. Kagaya will never be able to be reborn again. Allowing myself to rejoice a little, I decided to remind myself of the root cause of our appearance here. Nagato's time came and he did not disappoint, managing not only to summon the statue, but also to print out the sanbai from it. Now my turn has come. The conversation with the bijou was not long, as was the transfer of the remaining sanbai chakra from that world. He quickly came to his senses and easily agreed to cooperate. He liked Yuzushio, as well as the lake teeming with traps in it. He gave me a piece of his chakra, but in return asked to settle in this peaceful place, promising to protect the treasures of my clan. We did not refuse, especially since he agreed to work as a carrier and transport the main branch of the Uzumaki clan back and forth. Truly a royal offer that we could not refuse. In general, having sincerely communicated with Sanbai and received his full support, we were able to return back without any risk and loaded with trophies taken from the clan's caches, completely justifying our absence before the eyes of the Hokage. Later, of course, he found out what kind of adventure we had pulled off, but he no longer scolded us. The winners are not judged. He just decided to speed up my wedding with Sasuke. The people needed a holiday, and what could be better than the wedding of the Hokage's favorite child combined with victory? However, I didn't mind. We have long considered ourselves husband and wife, but we were not such in the eyes of others. I was happy, because I could not even dream that my parents would be present at this event. It will forever remain in my heart, the most precious memory, as well as the feeling of all-encompassing happiness in my heart. Now I can say with a smile that I am at home, I am in my place. We succeeded, Kurama? And